I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Kaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Toho, why do you keep putting your logo on bad kaiju movies?
I need to let you guys know up front that since I'm not much of a gamer, I'm not really familiar with the Monster Hunter series beyond the most basic of details. I have no personal investment, no deep knowledge of the lore, no favorite weapons, and no connection to any characters, human or otherwise.
I sat down to watch this movie as a newcomer to the whole thing, and I still came away from it feeling like I'd been cheated. I can only imagine how longtime fans of the game must feel. Probably close to how you felt after watching those other kaiju movies Toho has produced recently. Yeah, probably. Still, I just wanted to clarify all of that. I can only speak about this movie as someone who wanted a good cinematic experience and didn't get one. So, that's exactly what I'm gonna do from here on out.
I may as well expound upon what the movie did well. The list of things that the Monster Hunter movie gets right is the monsters. That's it.
Again, I'm saying all of this as someone who has no previous experience with the games, so I'm sure there was a lot of lore left out that would have made these creatures much more interesting. That being said though, in terms of design and screen presence, I have no major complaints.
They all look distinct and the CGI works, so there's never a moment where they look bad.
On the other hand, not much effort is put into making the monsters feel like real individuals either.
The Diabolos, Nursulus, and Rathalos are all single-minded killing machines, while the Apsaros herd are basically ankylosaur-shaped cows. Oh, and there's a Gormagala that shows up at the very end, but it hardly does anything. It still looks neat, I guess.
Still, the monsters in this movie just collectively managed to be okay. Everything else is like someone went through a checklist of everything you could do wrong while filmmaking. I don't even know where to begin.
The main cast is as good a place as any.
I have no counter-argument for that. Heck, the characters are one of the biggest missteps this movie takes.
Again, though I don't know much about the Monster Hunter games, I do know that they are set in a very distinct fantasy world that has nothing to do with modern-day Earth. So naturally, the movie starts us off in modern-day Earth, so we can follow the most generic soldiers to ever grace the silver screen.
Seriously, there is nothing to these cardboard standees masquerading as characters.
We first meet them in the midst of doing... Actually, I'm not entirely sure why they're in the desert, but it doesn't really matter. They interact entirely in quips that aren't especially witty, sing a generically ironic song about army life that I'll spare you from listening to. There's one character who has a picture of his family waiting for him back home, so we know that character won't survive. And before we can actually get to know any of them, all but Mila Jovovich are killed by the Nursulus.
This box right here is full of all the darns I give about their gruesome deaths. Why should I care if I haven't been given a reason to? As for Mila Jovovich's character, just because she sticks around the whole time doesn't mean she fares much better than her dead comrades.
Her character is named Artemis because the name I'm a Hunting Gal was just a bit too on the nose. She eventually winds up in the company of Tony Jaa's character, known only as the Hunter, because he apparently doesn't deserve even a proper name. Kind of unfortunate that this happens to the only major Asian character in the movie.
Neither of them have enough personality to carry the film on their own, and it gets even worse when they're together.
I get the feeling that this middle act of the film was heavily inspired by Enemy Mine, since it's about 2 people stranded in a dangerous environment who must overcome a language barrier to survive. The thing is, though, that Enemy Mine devoted a lot of time to showing how David and Drac figure each other out and form their unconventional friendship. In Monster Hunter, the focus is on what Artemis and the Hunter are doing rather than who they are, which needs to be the case because they are as bland as characters can get.
We really can't spend time learning who they are because They aren't anybody.
They exist only to move from one action set piece to another, which may be fine for an interactive video game, but almost never works in a movie.
Then we have the boring scenery.
Even if you just search for images under Monster Hunter video game, you get screen caps of the game which show lush jungles, rocky deserts, and ancient ruins, all of which are vibrant, bright, and interesting to look at.
So naturally, the movie chooses to spend most of its runtime in the most vacant desert imaginable.
Yup, that sure is a whole lot of nothing we're looking at. Nothing but rolling sand dunes as far as the eye can see, with a few rocks thrown in here and there for Artemis and Hunter to stand on. We get precisely one shipwreck, barely any time spent in the jungle, and the tower at the end of the film is as plainly designed as it can be. Throw on a filter to make it all washed out, and you have a movie that's boring to look at most of the time.
Shall I also espouse on how disinterested the movie is in exploring the world of Monster Hunter? Yes, I shall, for it goes well beyond just setting the whole thing in a boring desert. Rather, it feels like the movie is mostly just including stuff from the games as fan service.
Take the Anthrocat, for example. My understanding is that this species is a prominent one in the games, complete with a unique culture and place in the greater world. Here, there's just a random catman who cooks for the sand ship's crew and otherwise does nothing of significance. He just appears to establish that he is in fact a thing that exists, and having done that, he fades into the background and contributes nothing else. You might not even remember he was there at all. Drop him from the movie, and nothing changes.
I'll bet fans of the game who were looking forward to seeing this species realized on film were sorely disappointed by that. As were probably a lot of furries.
Even the way in which some of the monsters are treated feels like they were thrown in just because fans of the game would recognize them, like the surprise water monster in the jungle or Gore Magala at the end.
It's the Ready Player One method of just throwing a bunch of recognizable stuff onto the screen, only in this case, it's only recognizable by a very small portion of the audience. To anyone else, people like me, none of it means a thing, and we're not given any reason to get invested in any of it. Speaking of the ending, that is the rotten cherry atop this fecal sundae.
After our heroes, such as they are, beat the Rathalos, they state the obvious fact that the tower has to be destroyed so the monsters won't escape to Earth. Gore Magala shows up, the music starts swelling like a finale theme as the hunters charge, and then the movie just stops.
It's not over, mind you. The story has not been concluded. It's more like everyone just got bored, gave up, and decided to leave rather than stick around to see what happens next.
That is some pretty blatant sequel baiting right there.
Is it? I mean, I put sequel hooks in my stories, but I put them at the very end as codas, after the main plot has concluded. I don't use my sequel hooks to replace the endings like this movie does.
Whatever it is, how cute is it that this movie thinks it's getting a sequel?
It would be adorable if it weren't so sad. Really, there's nothing else to say other than the Monster Hunter movie is an insult.
As I stated before, I'm not familiar with the games, and I still feel insulted. I can only imagine how the proper fandom must feel about this travesty. Movies such as Monster Hunter are the reason video game adaptations are still frowned upon by audiences. Whatever you can imagine a modern-day movie doing wrong, it does in spades.
If this is your first time watching one of my videos, I'd like to assure you that I normally put more effort into my work than this. I try to get analytical, peel back the layers, look at things from different perspectives. But the Monster Hunter movie just isn't worth it. If you want deeper stuff, check out my other videos. I've got plenty of them. As for Monster Hunter, the movie, I wash my hands of it, and I have no intention of ever coming back to it. Based on the impact it left behind, neither does anyone else. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. I suppose I could always check out the original games at some point, but given the current landscape of modern gaming, I'm not sure my wallet would survive that.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books: Operation Red Dragon, The Kaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.